Looks like the YouTube is back on, and when Katie is ready, we'll go back into an RDA meeting.
Ready.
Okay.
Welcome to the Redevelopment Agency of Centerville City. We have on our agenda to discuss the proposed uses of tax increment for purchases, including cost of widening 400 West for Quick Quack Car Wash. So Quick Quack Car Wash is a national chain, but they purchased the KinderCare building next to Dairy Queen at a substantial premium to what we tried to get them to sell to us for a fire station.
Okay, take that one too. These two handouts relate to.
Do you have an electronic version you can put on the screen for George?
We added it today, Jake. So
excited to see this.
Yeah. Let's start with the Quick Quack site plan.
Is George seeing my screen?
Okay.
I'm not seeing a share.
No, you're not sharing. You got to reshare it.
Well, while they're trying to get that up on there, let me explain that the site plan approval for Quick Quack has required them to set their car wash back sufficiently to the east on the property so that a future or current widening of the road can be done without requiring them to make modifications at that time when the road is widened to accommodate the intersection improvement that we have received federal funding for in about 5 years. That intersection improvement, if you'll recall, is to add a second left turn lane from Parish onto 400 West. In order to receive both of those lanes, you'd have to have a second lane on 400 West going north for a while, and then they would merge. So eventually when that happens, we'll have to acquire, as part of that project, some additional frontage from the Dairy Queen. But in light of, and that second lane would continue for a ways in front of Quick Quack and then merge by transitioning across the Colonial Lumber property. With Quick Quacks going in now, we thought that it made sense to make some road widening right now in front of, well, let me back up. First of all, to consolidate their entrance with Dairy Queen, move the Dairy Queen entrance to the north to bridge the property line and serve both properties.
Which will help with the problem of the Dairy Queen drive-through spilling out into the street and give them a little bit longer.
Yeah, and also to, yeah, that's right. And then this is the Dairy Queen here. And to start a transition in front of the Dairy Queen like this, then here's the widening of the road. Here's the joint entrance, new entrance. The idea being that we make this improvement now, it'll improve the current situation. It will allow, when the intersection project is done, it will reduce the impact on these businesses if these improvements are made now, so they can continue to operate without as much impact as they otherwise would have at that time. But the other reason for considering this, in Lisa's opinion, we cannot expect the developer of the Quick Quack site to pay the cost of widening this road, which means the city would have to buy additional right-of-way and share to some extent based on whatever is a fair judgment as to the cost of these improvements related to the road. Why do it now rather than wait until the intersection project is done when we have the federal money involved. Well, remember that we have a match required of about 7% of the federal project. The federal project is, I think it's 1.9 million, or about almost $2 million estimate, so our 7% would be 140,000, let's say, 130,000. If we do this now, we've been told that the purchase of the right-of-way at least, and I'm waiting for an answer about what our investment in the widening of the road, whether that would also be counted as credit in 5 years against our match. If we can get the assurance that that's the case, at least the right-of-way and possibly our share of the improvements can be credited against our match in 5 years, we can pay for that now with RDA money. In 5 years, the RDA for that area will have expired. And only if we have held on to some RDA money from that project area would we be able to use RDA money for that. Now that is another option. We could just build in to make sure we save money for that purpose. So the Planning Commission has approved this site plan like this based on the assumption that we are going to buy that additional right-of-way now and make cost share the improvements. I only have a verbal indication and it's secondhand that they will give us, UDOT will give us credit, or the federal government will give us credit for doing these things now. I have left a message twice. I got that secondhand from Ben Wuthrich of Wasatch Front, who spoke with Mike Timothy of UDOT, who's the local government liaison for these kind of projects. And so Ben relayed to me that, yes, the right-of-way can be used as a credit when that time comes. I don't think that's sufficient to rely upon, so I have left a message twice for Mike Timothy to call me back over the last 10, 11 days. He hasn't called me back. I sent him an email, same day as I made the first call, hasn't responded to that. So today I sent another email. Hand that down to you as well so you know what effort is being made. I can probably speak from here now. There you go. So if you're inclined to support this effort at this time, I would suggest it only be done if we can get the confirmation in writing from the UDOT guy that this can be used as credit at that time. At least the right-of-way purchase, which is the biggest chunk here, as we'll talk about in the closed session. This other attachment to Novus is the cost breakdown that we're recommending. I better go back over here. The rationale for the cost breakdown between the developer and the city is that widening the road would require this curb to go back at this time along here. Even if the joint entrance was put in, there would have to be a significant modification, remove and replace the curb and gutter here associated with the entrance to the Dairy Queen. Our city engineer has recommended that the city pay the cost essentially associated with widening the road here along the Quick Quack entrance, but that the developer bear the cost of the improvements here related to the Dairy Queen. We do have the option of not widening the road at this time and still requiring this new consolidated entrance. In that case, the curb and gutter would stay out here where it is now. We would have to require Quick Quack still to build back like this so that in the future with this widening that they wouldn't have to alter any of this.
I think I missed something there.
Okay.
Where would the curb and gutter be if we do
The
Right
curb and
now-
gutter would be in its current alignment, but the entrance to the Dairy Queen now would be closed off. The curb and gutter there would, you'd have to install curb and gutter to block that off, but it would be in line with the existing curb and gutter out here.
In either case,
No, just in
No,
the,
they're not doing it now.
if they're not doing it now. But
Yeah.
but if we are doing it now, then,
Then this is what
Then it's
happens.
that-
You widen the road up in this vicinity with this transition in front of Dairy Queen to back here to where the road would be widened to. And eventually, the road in front of the Dairy Queen would be widened. But that's 5 years from now.
so it would do
Now-
an hourglass.
Now, the city engineer believes there's some benefit to this now because you do have somewhat of a, you get that
Stack
stack up in
cars.
the Dairy Queen, it goes out in the road, you have a little bit of capacity there where a car might be sticking out. You also have kind of a right turn lane here for trucks that are coming into Colonial. This 25-foot strip here has been purchased by Fred from Smoots, who owned this property before it was sold to Quick Quack.
oh, really?
Yeah.
So is he trying to expand that?
This
With
is
the
what he
asphalt?
uses already. He
Oh.
already uses this.
Oh, he already used it, but it was part of the private drive, it just wasn't his.
It wasn't his. Yeah,
He built on it.
right.
Okay, I'm wondering why that,
So if we don't go forward with this improvement at this time, the matter would have to go, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, would have to go back to the Planning Commission to approve a site plan that has, based on not altering the road width at this time.
I think that's correct. The Planning Commission approved this site plan subject to the RDA and the council agreeing to purchase the property and pay for a portion of the improvements, or
Right.
conceptually. But yeah, if it's not, if the RDA doesn't go in that direction, then it would just go back to the Planning Commission to determine the, I mean, it probably wouldn't require that much of a change, because we still want it to be pushed back as
Right.
if it would be taken, so.
Right, and
They might just have to
might allow.
say what they're going to put in the front with that landscape.
I'm just conjecturing, but I assume it might allow them to go ahead with demolition on the site and that kind of thing while they're going back for approval of an amendment to the
Yeah.
front part
Well,
of
and that
it.
might even just be a staff level.
Yeah,
So
We
my
might-
only question is if they determined that this is within the Parish Lane Improvement District and need to comply with the design guidelines? And so will they be required to install pedestrian lighting, trees?
well, there's some, Lisa's gonna have to, I think would be better suited to speak to that, but that was definitely, they decided, the Planning Commission decided that it's within the Parish Lane guidelines, and therefore, if this is staying out here for now, then they have to have that additional distance in the front there for landscaping.
Yeah, the Planning Commission determined they are in the Parish Lane design guidelines, but they went through a number of the shoulds and the shalls, if you remember, in the design guidelines. So they did reduce, they provided a landscaping modification, I believe, in that front strip. So it's not going to be the 20-foot
Right.
landscape buffer, but if you read the design guidelines, that's mainly addressing parish, and this is a little off of parish, so there was a little wiggle room there, but we were trying to get a little bit. I think the Planning Commission ended up on about, after that shaded area is purchased, there would be about 8 feet of landscaping.
6 or 8 feet, 6 to 8 feet,
6 to
wasn't
8
it?
feet, and
Oh, some of it being sidewalk though? Is that right, or?
just landscaping behind that. So it was actually so 14 feet, so that would include a sidewalk and then landscaping. And I think there'll be trees in the landscaping, and I can't read the site plan with enough detail to
Yeah, I
know
thought it
about
was
the
maybe
pedestrian
6
lighting.
feet, 6-foot sidewalk against the curb and then another
don't
6
remember.
feet
But
of
the
landscaping
the
behind.
site plan condition let's see, public street landscaping areas shall be at least 14 feet wide, measured from the back of curb, which shall include a sidewalk, and at least an 8-foot park strip to accommodate street trees, pedestrian lighting, and
Okay.
buffering from the public right of way.
So it was
Okay,
8
so it
feet
does have
behind the
that.
sidewalk,
And let's see.
as
So that was
opposed to
the-
20 feet
That was
of
the
landscape.
landscape
Right.
modification.
Which is fine. I would lean towards waiting and doing it later, for reasons of making positive that our investment is counted. Who knows what kind of plans might change by then and things like that. But if we are requiring to make them to make that investment, I would like to see that done sooner rather than later, rather than held off. And I, of course, wouldn't want to have them do it in the wrong place. So that leans me towards going ahead. and doing it.
My opinion is we know this is needed for improvements. The CMAQ projects in the past have.
What is CMAQ?
Congestion,
Congested mitigation, air quality,
the federal projects.
that's the pot of money that the federal government,
Generally, I mean, they've in the past always come through. Sometimes it's slipped 1 year or 2 years, one way or the other, but it's a fairly reliable program. You can plan 5 years out. I think this is the right thing to do these improvements at the time of development. It's less costly than trying to do them twice, making one change now and then coming back and changing it later. And even if we have to move, money around a little bit, it's the right thing to fix the problem now. It'll help Dairy Queen, and it'll, do it right the first time rather than trying to do it in 2 steps.
Well, it still needs to be done in 2 steps is the thing, and that's why if it weren't for,
Well, this portion only needs to be done in 1 step, the quick quack car wash. The Dairy Queen is 2 steps no matter what, move the intersection and then widen it, or move the entrance. But I think it's a smart thing to be proactive and try to fix it now, do it right, rather than doing it right after 3 or 5 years after you install it.
the Dairy Queen folks sent me somewhat of a disconcerting email in the last few days. I told them we'd be meeting with them this week to talk about this plan and the purchase of their right-of-way after I get some direction from the council. And they replied that they really want to look at the plan for the ultimate improvement of the intersection, how that will affect them on site, so that they can decide whether they want to be looking for another site or not, or plan to stay where they are. So today, staff and I agreed that we need to get this. There were some tweaks to this that the developer had agreed to do last week when we met with him, and he's supposed to get those to us this week. So we intend to meet with the Dairy Queen folks, talk about the ultimate impact in 5 years to them. Whether that has some bearing on whether we should go forward at this time, I don't know. I'm kind of struggling with this, but
yeah.
At the risk of being negative,
Microphone vote.
at the risk of being negative, I would say that the majority of the community hates what was done at Parrish and Lane and Maine.
I would agree with that.
I know that it's supposed to.
I don't think that's,
I
that
wouldn't.
might be your perception.
That's my perception.
That's your perception. I hear a lot of positive things from people who live to the north who significantly reduce their.
No, I live to the
Commute.
north, and I think that it's atrocious. It helps people for an hour, and it costs people the rest of the day. I can't tell you how many times I have sat through the light, because UDOT rule is you cannot have an optional left turn when you have the double lane. I'm not well enough acquainted with all the rules. I mean, is Fourth West under UDOT control and we absolutely have no impact in this? I just don't see this as being a benefit. And I don't think, I mean, I have no idea, Paul, how many people feel it is a substantial benefit. You know, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and grief and animosity that came out of the Parish and Maine situation because what it did to the homes and the lots. And I would not want to be associated with Dairy Queen moving because they felt forced out. That would be a major black eye in this community. So
I think you're right.
I don't have, I mean, I have no idea how much control we have. I have no idea, other than Stephanie sitting to my right agreeing with me, how many others agree or don't agree. But I don't see this as being a boon, personally.
And I think that if it were a different business, it might not be as big an issue. But people are pretty loyal to Dairy Queen. And if Dairy Queen wasn't happy, people are not going to be happy. And they don't have cars hanging out into the street for lack of popularity. I think we need to tread very softly and see how we can make sure that they're happy more than anything else.
I agree. I think Dairy Queen is a big center thing. So is that the reason when you come down Parish Lane, there's no, I mean.
Yeah, when you come down Parish Lane and you're at Main Street and Parish, I don't know why I have to sit through 3 light cycles to be able to proceed west when
Yeah.
they're not. It's a nightmare.
It is.
I hate that intersection.
I mean, my husband has said several times, why don't they have a turn lane here? Look, there's room. Tell them to put the turn lane in there.
In there where?
Where are you
What
talking about?
about?
When you come down Parish Lane,
West on Parish Lane.
west on Parish Lane, you
Towards
can't
Main
turn, let's see, you
On
can't,
Main Street?
yeah, you can't turn, is it north?
You can't make a left turn when the traffic clears, because whenever you've got that double lane, UDOT's
Rule.
standards prohibit it.
Right.
And it's when the light cycles through, it does not always allow for traffic to proceed straight west. I have sat there multiple times where I've had to go 3 light cycles in order to
And lots of
proceed
times the
west.
traffic is backed up clear past First East.
That's
I can't even pull
probably
out
a-
onto Parish
An
Lane.
adjustment to the sensor or something on the equipment, because that shouldn't be happening.
It's pretty
There's a
frustrating.
UDOT app to report that. And every time I've seen somebody report a complaint about the traffic signal, Carrie Thomas responds and fixes it. So
Yeah,
Okay.
if you got an example of that, report it and let's
yeah.
have her fix it.
But I think,
My problem's not the westbound, which
And
Rob was
you want-
talking about. I'm talking about the
So-
eastbound.
but anyway, back to the other intersection, what I'm hearing, I think, is that there's not a solid
Drive to do it now.
a drive to do it now, some question marks.
It's gonna cost us more to do it later. You okay with that?
Well, no, I said, if we have no choice but to do it, then we
Well-
need to do it in the most judicious fashion.
Well, I can't stand here and say that UDOT's going to do it even if we don't want them to do it. I can't say that. I doubt that they would do it if we don't want them to do it. So if that's a possibility, that judgment will be made at some point in the next 5 years, I guess. And if the possible outcome is that it's not going to be done, then we shouldn't do this
Yeah, there's
at this time.
But we should still consolidate the entrance between
Yes.
the two.
I agree
Yes,
with that.
that's been a recommendation from the start as we've considered these options, is that we consolidate those entrances. So if that's the case, then we don't need the closed meeting about the value of the right-of-way. We can forego that, and I'll go back, and at least that's my perception, Lisa, there'd be no need to purchase right-of-way. And we just go back and
Right, So
amend the,
the only additional question that I have is, I am glad that the planning commission decided to apply the Parish Lane design guidelines, and I would like to see this business do the planting of the trees and the putting in of the pedestrian lights. But I wouldn't want, of course, to have them do that now before this decision gets resolved.
well, the intent would be to plant those trees back where they would
And what do you mean now?
survive.
Right, so that,
Because, or this decision, because really what you're saying is, no, we don't want to purchase the right of way right now. So that would have to be revisited.
What would have to be revisited?
If it was going to be done.
Yeah.
right, so
I mean,
before we have them invest in the existing curb line with the Parish Lane improvements, I think we need to more thoroughly discuss what kind of engineering solutions do we want to consider for this area? Because this is a very common engineering question. Do you really need two left turn lanes, or are there other more creative ways, which I've seen many of that are getting a little more popular, and it's more common to go with some different solutions.
I just don't think you're going to get that kind of a evaluation in a time frame that Quick Quack is ready to go. They are anxious.
I'm not saying I want to hold off Quick Quack. I'm saying that I would want to give them a window of time where they could stall putting in the park strip.
Oh, I see.
That's all I'm saying.
Essentially proceeding and working back on the private portion of this.
Which we did something similar with Sonic, I believe, because they needed to put in the pedestrian lights, but there was a pole to put on it.
And the idea that staff has talked is, if we don't modify the road at this time, if we don't widen the road, we still need to have them put the trees back where they would survive ultimately if there was a widening in the future.
Right.
Right,
But
This will be a different council in 5 years,
sure.
Yeah.
and at least plan for the future.
So,
One of the things that I guess I would like to suggest, and we've had this conversation, Lisa, and trying to figure out what public opinion is, and I'm not sure how we do it, but there's a lot of people who I believe dislike where we are at Parish and Main, and we're stuck with it. Paul believes there's a lot of people who like it. Is this something that we could do some kind of a long-term poll on and try and find out what people think? I'm not saying that what I think is predominant.
I'd suggest you wait 2 or 3
Maybe I
years.
just talk to people that I like, and that's what we all think the same way. But
Yeah, I'd suggest you wait 2 or 3 years. You got a window of 5 years here before this thing would be done. Conditions are going to change somewhat in the next
part of
couple
the
of years.
issue, and one of the negatives you and I had to overcome in the beginning of our more detailed relationship, was the Parish Lane in Maine hit us so quickly that people didn't know, and people were very upset. And so I'm not saying do it now, but I'm saying we've got to give it the lead time so that we have the ability to respond, because at least my perception, and I could be the one that's wrong, was that didn't occur with Parish and Maine.
I agree. Just for the record, the Parish in Maine, in my opinion, I would have never agreed with it if I were here and part of the process, for a long list of reasons. But I did understand that there was a need, and there were very legitimate reasons why it was decided to go with that. In this situation, I would just want a more lengthy analysis. The difficulty is that the people are very concerned about that section between 400 West and the off-ramp. and how all of that goes.
That's where the bottleneck is, there's only
Where the
two
bottleneck
lanes.
is,
And it's not long enough
actually,
for the
the,
kind of traffic it carries.
the further west portion is the worst,
Is the
in my
worst,
opinion.
But this is still.
But this is still part of it, you're right.
And so I think that's what we'd probably hear more about, is that concern, but that leads to part of my other question is, would this solution stand as the right thing for this spot, even after we find out what the overpass solution will be? Or is this gonna be a Band-Aid that then might be changed when that?
That's a very good comment, I
Yeah.
hadn't thought of.
So that's another reason I don't wanna rush into doing this as a solution without.
And to your question on Maine, if I remember correctly, it was way in the future, and then we got Obama stimulus
Yeah.
money, and the city kind of accepted it and was running with it, thinking, we've got this great project.
They asked
And
us
then
to
the
move it,
people-
move it up, but
UDOT moved it up, or it tried to move it up. As it ended up, with all the stalls on getting right-of-way, it ended up being about the year that originally was planned.
But that's why it happened so quickly.
Yes.
And people were really upset about it at the time. I mean, I
Well-
think the city thought it was what everybody wanted, and we got the stimulus money, and
Well, let me clarify further, Robin. Let me
let
clarify further. The project initially was going to be just one phase. You were going to have two left turns on Main Street turning onto Parrish. And then UDOT subsequently just said, based on our more recent observations and analysis, you need both parts done at the same time, and we're going to give you this extra money to get it done at the same time. And that's when it included the part that generated the opposition, because we had to acquire from these homes on the east side, north of Parrish, whereas the first phase would not have required that.
And to be clear, I mean, there was an obvious need that was only getting worse with time. I mean, that single line of cars was just kept going and going and going, getting longer and longer. So
Right.
these are very difficult questions.
Very difficult.
Very, very difficult questions.
But again, an hour a day versus 23 hours a day,
Right.
it is a tough pill to swallow.
So everyone should be aware, there are two projects, I mean, there are three projects on Parrish Lane on the long-term plans. There's improvements to the 400 West intersection, there's improvements to the Marketplace intersection, widening that, and then eventually a rebuild of the intersection,
Well,
The overpass.
of the overpass, which is not
did
scheduled.
they put Marketplace and Parrish on the long-term plan?
Well, I mean, the widening along Iggy's.
Have they actually put that on the plan? I don't think so.
Oh, I thought that was coming, I thought that was.
That was, that was all part of that analysis that
But it's not on
UDOT
the- not on
agreed. It's not on the, I know it's not on the STIP, or the
Okay.
TIP, the five-year
My
plan.
mistake.
And I don't,
Or CMAX.
or I don't think it's on
So this
any
is the
plan
prior-
yet. It was just part of the analysis of possible improvements that could be made at those two intersections to help with the congestion. And it was ultimately agreed by UDOT and city staff that the greatest impact or relief would be achieved by doing the improvements at 400 West, not at Marketplace.
So that's the priority right now.
That was why that one ended up on the five-year plan.
Thanks
Yeah.
for clarifying that.
And just while we're talking about it, I just want to throw out there also the pedestrian safety issue of that crosswalk that we already talked about earlier tonight, that can be a little bit dangerous. This would intensify that.
Which crosswalk?
The
Has it made it
crosswalk
more-
from Colonial to Center
at the
Point.
theater.
It's
Yeah.
true.
Because people are busy figuring out how to merge and not even
Paying
looking
attention
forward.
to people walking.
Well, I think then it's my perception that we want to go back, step back, get a site plan approved that leaves the road alignment where it is. We still consolidate the entrance, though.
Yes.
Yes, and my desire would be to just place a hold on the tree planting and pedestrian lighting until we
Why not
can,
just, if you're not gonna do the improvements, why not place them far enough back so? they
because
can-
that changes
Well-
their purpose and their,
Well, let me pose this question to you, because One of the options is if we leave the road alignment where it is that you still realign the sidewalk. Well, the staff is suggesting that you still have them put this in back here, this colored crosswalk, realign this sidewalk and this one, but, you know, as I think about it,
No, that would be premature, yeah.
if it's a question mark, if it's not a certainty that the intersection project's gonna happen, then we need to just go back and talk
Yeah.
to staff about this.
Well, and I think we need to talk to
Planning.
Quack.
Quick quack too, yeah. So, I don't need any decision tonight, but
And in the meantime, the money is still there, assuming that the money would still be available if it was decided
For
that
now.
in 5 years.
For the intersection project, yeah, we're on the,
Yeah.
on the last.
So we're on the plan, and it can still be decided if
Yes.
an analysis is done.
Now, the big sheet I handed you, we don't need to go over tonight, but I would like to sometime. You can either take it with you, or I'll give it to you again. You want to take it with you? Okay, very good. We, at some other RDA meeting, we'll talk about other potential uses for it.
Basically shows how much room you have to do any projects in various RDAs.
Well, and with this
Or back.
explanation, we have to still go back 4 years. This is one of Jake's assignments in the next month. We need to go back 4 years and come forward with a review of all the RDA expenses and summarize them by project area. And compare that to the revenue from each project area so that we can establish whether there's a loan from one project area to the other. I did find in the files kind of a report that Blaine gave to you guys in 2013.
Give it to
Which,
some of us.
well, some of you, yeah, so those of you, well, maybe none of you were here, that showed the status of the loan between Legacy Crossing project area and the Parish project area. I'm gonna use that as a starting point and come forward and update that so we know how much is owed from one project area to the other.
When this, to me, when you say here revenue,
Yes.
that implies an annual number.
Uh-huh.
Is this an annual number or is this a balance?
This is an annual, this is analysis of the 2018 budget. Just taken the budget, which was the other page I gave you, and sorted it like this.
Looking only 1 year out.
This is just for fiscal year 18. Yes.
And is there a balance
There's a-
available?
Yeah, if you look down here on the lower half of that page, it's about 89,000 of unrestricted cash. Where did I note that?
Right here.
Yeah, right there. Approximately 89,000 of unrestricted RDA cash at the end of last fiscal year. That is available also to be appropriated in addition to the new revenue.
Plus, for a period of time, we have about another 75,000 a year in Parish Lane. That number goes down over time, but it's 75,000 revenue.
Well, right, beyond whatever this consists of these things up here, yeah, right. Yeah.
Right, so.
Anything else we need to discuss on RDA? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned. George left us some time ago.